Sherry and I do such a good job that every other podcast sounds like every other podcast
this is
sounds
family
like
friendly.
crap.
sorry.
No, you're good. What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a 32-year-old man who never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid. I read them as an adult because I was determining if that was a book series that society had slept on. I said yes, and now I'm figuring out if society has slept on all the other stuff in the Riordan verse. Now we're on to Heroes of Olympus, and I'm not on this journey alone. I am joined by someone who you have heard on the podcast many times, someone that you know and love, and all of his opinions are his own, and they don't belong to any medical institution. It's one of my home dogs. It's Stephen Parra. Dr. Stephen Parra. How's it going, home dog Dr. Stephen Parra?
Very good. Broadcasting from my own home. Things are going
Yes, you are
nicely.
truly a home dog, as
Yes.
we will get into in this chapter.
Oh, yes, exactly.
The cool
Yes.
lingo that our new narrator is utilizing.
Amazing. Yes.
So I'm very excited to have you here for these two chapters, the first Leo narration chapters. Now, I know this answer, but for the folks at home, what is your history with the Heroes of Olympus books?
Well, not much, to be honest. As we talked about, I'd read the original PJO book series quite extensively way back when I was in high school, but I didn't pick up my first Heroes of Olympus book until after I'd finished my reread of the series to do stuff with you on the podcast. Mostly so Kelly could have somebody to talk to about because she didn't have anybody. That being said, I think I read the first book still probably a year and a half ago at this point. I've been a little busy with my my job and stuff, so I haven't read past this first book, but I have read the entire first book, and it's super cool. And hopefully by the next time I'm on the pod, I'll be much further into the series, knowing me. But that's really it. I'm kind of on this journey with you, but I am a little bit ahead, which is all we really need.
It is all we need, especially for such an early chapter. We don't have to worry about the super big picture stuff because really in the first couple of chapters, you just get a lot of the guests going, because they just can't spoil me for stuff. So it's all good. I don't know how far into the book you were, but you were a chunk into the book when you came down to the Jersey Shore one summer to hang with me and Kelly, my family. And you had talked about the book a little bit. You had read a little bit on the beach, and then you were driving in your car, but you had to flag me and wave frantically for me to not enter the car because you were audiobooking the book. And then you had to pause it because I think it was at a juicy portion.
Yes, actually, it was a juicy portion of book 5.
Oh, it was not even okay. So you were reading book.
I was
version
reading the
of
book
Heroes of
on
Olympus,
the beach,
but you were audiobooking the last.
No,
Olympian.
literally,
Gotcha.
it was Luke deciding to end himself to save the world. Was where the audiobook was.
Oh, that would have been not ideal.
I know. That's why I was like, "Don't come in here." Oh my god!
Yeah, I don't remember where I was, but I feel like I was in book 3 or 4, so that would have been brutal.
We were far away from there.
Fantastic. But I do remember you mentioning, I think you had listened to the audiobook at that point in time for Heroes of Olympus, and you said you had to stop because, and you said it in a very non-spoilery way, you said there is a Mexican character,
Yes,
and the voice is so bad I can't handle it. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. I did start it after. I think I was listening to the audiobook after we were driving from the Jersey Shore going home. And
Gotcha.
as a Mexican guy myself, it felt very, I guess, Apu-ish, if I'm to reference something else.
Mm-hmm. The Simpsons character with a very bad stereotypical accent.
Voiced by a white man. It kind of felt similar to me. It's not that I'm saying I don't have cousins that sound like Leo in this audiobook production, but it made me uncomfortable.
Do you want to do an impression? You don't have to, but do you I've not heard this.
It's so it's sort of gosh, I haven't listened to the audiobook in so long, but I can sort of be like, "Hey man, what's up? Let's go build some stuff in my garage, man. It's going to be awesome."
Okay. Yeah. Sounding like Uncle Rolly from Primo, if anyone has watched that.
Yeah, it's for me, I always imagine there's these two characters in the movie Selena that try to help her move her tour bus back onto the road, and it just rips off their back bumper. And they're just like, "I'm going to hang this in my garage, man. I'm not mad." And That's what's always been stuck in my head is these two characters.
Well, especially with the garage stuff with the Leo, as we'll learn, you know.
Yeah, yes. And so it was weird. It's like I couldn't really listen to the audiobook very much. I just read the book instead, which was fine. And then Leo can be whatever you want him to be.
Yeah. So let's get into the Leo chapters. We begin with chapter 5, which is just called Leo, as all these chapters are. But we're doing the fun game that I like, where now we'll try to title the chapter by the end of the chapter. So you can start turning the gears of, by the time we're at the end of chapter 5, you can submit what would be the quirky PJO narrated version chapter title if we were going with that. But we do still have every chapter starting with a banger of a line, and the opening line for this one is, Leo's tour was going great until he learned about the dragon. Because yes, where we last left our heroes, I guess where we last left Leo, he was going on a tour of the camp with Will Solace. This is while Piper and Annabeth were doing their tour, which was the last episode.
Yeah, this is something I just kind of like about how the books are set up now, is we can kind of play with temporality a lot better. You know, we're cutting scenes. It's almost kind of cinematic. It's like, okay, Piper and Annabeth and Rachel had this cool little moment in the Hera Temple, and then we just kind of cut, what's Leo been up to? And we kind of just get to step back and see other things. It's just kind of nice. We kind of can play a little bit more with the narrative than we could when it was just Percy's perspective.
Right. It's been really fun. And I'm wondering if they will also play with the time of it. Like, I mean, obviously no spoilers, but I wonder if they'll ever do a thing where the same situation will be described from multiple perspectives. And then it'll be like playing Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, where you get to see the same thing from each of the 3 characters. That could be really cool. Like if there was something where, you know, there was a big fight where all 3 of our heroes were there. But then we got to see like what was Jason's narration and thoughts, what were Leo's thoughts, stuff like that. That could be really interesting.
For sure.
But I do agree. The fact that we can have at least simultaneous, well, while chapters 3 and 4 were happening, here's what happened chapters 5 and 6. Because I'm pretty sure the previous one ended with getting ready to go to dinner. So this one, chapter 6, also ends with getting ready to go to dinner. So at the very least, we're getting simultaneous stuff, which is fun. Now, the next line is also very cool from narrator Leo, quote, the archer dude, Will Solace, seemed pretty cool. And it's pretty obvious early on that the narrator voice is just so different. Such a stark contrast from Piper to Leo. And I love it. It's way more unhinged. He is just having a goofy, silly time. And even though these are third-person limited narration, I don't feel like we're losing any of the personality. And this chapter is such an example of that. We get so much fun flair from Leo.
Oh, yeah. I love all of Leo's chapters. They're just great.
Yeah, a fun ride. So he is very excited about all of the dangerous things at camp. And he is also excited about the, quote, fine-looking girls, which I've always thought is a funny word. Fine itself is just so funny because it really depends on the tone. Like you could call someone fine-looking or someone fine-looking. And it means the exact opposite.
Pesky language, English.
Oh, God. I don't envy anyone that has to learn our stupid language. It makes no sense. Our rules are awful. Why?
Oh, yeah.
It's so bad. It's the worst. We should all learn Latin. Anyway. So then Leo, as the narrator, it says, quote, Leo didn't quite understand the whole related to the gods business, but he hoped that didn't mean he was cousins with all these ladies. That would suck. At the very least, he wanted to check out those underwater girls in the lake again. They were worth drowning for. So we've learned that Leo is horny.
Yes. He is.
I mean, he's 15,
Yeah,
right?
like, he's a 15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I remember.
Some of us were there.
Yeah.
So Will shows Leo the cabins, the dining pavilion, and the sword arena. Leo asks if he will get a sword. Will says that he will probably make his own since he's part of Cabin 9. And Leo goes, yeah, what's the deal with the whole Vulcan thing? And Will goes, well, we only use the Greek names, so your dad is Hephaestus. And now this particular line makes it clear to me, at least for the Olympians, it seems like we're not going to have 2 separate people. Like we're not going to have Hephaestus and Vulcan. We are just going to have Hephaestus, and then the Roman people call him Vulcan, which I think makes more sense. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some other things like those wind spirits. Since their name was Latin, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some new characters that are more minor, whether that be monsters or minor gods or something. But I feel like we're not going to get like a copy-paste 12 where it's like the Roman versions of the Olympians. That's what this line said to me, but we will have to see.
I also love this bit because I think Leo throws in some comment like, I was a little disappointed because I'm not a fan of Star Trek, which I thought was just such a good line.
Yeah, he said that earlier when he was getting dragged away. Yeah,
got it. Never mind.
That's in chapter 3.
Oh,
yeah,
my
in chapter
bad.
3, it's totally fine. All the things blend together, especially with these chapters being so short. But yeah, in chapter 3, he goes like, Vulcan, I'm not even a Star Wars fan. And our past guest, Walker Scobell, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. But
I'm not sure if I have.
He got the reference, which I was proud of since he's about 5 years old. But of course, he knew them from the Star Trek movies that came out like when we were in high school, and he was in diapers, I guess. So at one point, Will mentions that Hephaestus is the god of fire, and Leo thinks that his dad being the god of fire must be some sort of sick joke given what happened to his mom, ... We're getting a lot more of that. We're getting a lot more of the narrator kind of saying something and not really revealing what it is until the end of the chapter. But I feel like with third person limited, it makes more sense because at least with this, it feels more like we have just jumped into Leo's brain in media res, whereas with the Lightning Thief and all the main 5 books of Percy Jackson, it felt like Percy telling us a story or telling someone a story or writing the story or whatever. So when narrator Percy left stuff out, it felt like cheating. When this happens, it feels more like, well, yeah, this isn't a documented thing. We just happen to be in Leo's brain for a little bit. And I think it especially gives me that vibe since we're jumping from person to person to person. It really just kind of feels like, oh, okay, now we can hear this person's thoughts for a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I give it more of a pass when they aren't telling us like their entire backstory, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. And I feel like we give it a little more grace because we're learning so much about so many characters all at once. Definitely, it's an effective tool to get me to keep reading because I'm always like, wait, tell me what happens. And I just want to keep going.
Right. Yeah, these books are way more geared towards making you not want to stop. I feel like... Oh, man, I didn't have as hard of a time with Lightning Thief, I think because the chapters were longer. And as I've explained to people, when I take notes for these episodes, it is like an exhausting process. Like I take so many notes and I'm writing different things and quotes and all this stuff that by the end of a chapter in the first 5 books, I was like, all right, cool, I'm done. Because it would take me like an hour plus. Mm-hmm. And after doing all that work, I was like, cool, I can be done. I'm ready to move on and do something else. But with this, especially with the perspective jumping and everything, like, it makes me really want to go. It feels like when I played the Spider-Man PlayStation video games, where it's just like, I do a mission and then I'm like, okay, well, what if I like started the next one? And then it's like, well, I'm already here, so I might as well beat up these guys. Like, oh, but what if and now Miles is here. Oh, what's Miles been up to?
Ooh, yeah. No, I got time for more. It's okay.
Yeah, I can do it. Oh, it's 4:30 in the morning. Leo asks Will if his claiming was a good thing or a bad thing, and Will says good because it happened almost immediately. Leo mentions that Butch said something about a curse, though, and Will says that that's been a thing ever since Cabin 9's last head counselor died, and he tells Leo that his bunkmates will explain it to him. And this is where Leo says, quote, yeah, where are my home dogs? Oh, like, oh no, Rick. Oh, Rick. Oh no. Oh dear. It makes me wish, and I know this will probably never happen, it makes me wish they would make an audiobook version where Rick read them. Because then it can be the thing like, wasn't it like Obama had his book, he narrated it himself, and then he would like have to read the quotes of people that were, from the hood. And he was like, you can out of context snippet Obama saying like things that you would not expect out of the mouth of Barack Obama.
I believe you. I'm not familiar.
I feel like I've just heard the memes of it.
That sounds
But I would love an audio clip of Uncle Rick saying, where are my home dogs?
My home dogs.
My home dogs.
Where art thou?
Ah. Oh, brother, where art thou, home dog?
Thou.
Oh, where could they be? Leo asks why the head counselor isn't giving the tour, and Will says that he can't, and Leo will see why. So Leo then sees his old babysitter, Tia Kaida. I'm guessing because of the double L's? Cool.
Yes. For those that can't see, I gave Mike a big thumbs up for his pronunciation.
And then in parentheses, I guess for anyone who has never met a Spanish speaker in their life, qualifies that Tia means aunt and says that Aunt Kaida is standing near a cabin staring at him. Describing her, the narrator Leo says, quote, her face hadn't changed, leathery skin, piercing dark eyes. Her withered hands were like claws. She looked ancient, but no different than Leo remembered. So that feels very Fury-esque to me. I don't know if it is a Fury or just something similar to a Fury, but I don't have great vibes for Tia Kaida here.
Dude, she's creepy.
Very creepy. I don't know what's going on, but it's super creepy. Will doesn't see this figure at all, thinks it must be some sort of mist thing with Leo, meaning it's definitely not a mist thing. Leo is ready to protest, but when he turns back to look for her, she's gone. So extra intriguing there. They then go to Cabin 9. And everything is either metal or tech, which means that Jake Abel shows up and goes, "Welcome to the modern world." That is a Lightning Thief movie 1 reference for anyone who is fortunate enough to have not seen those films. But yeah, they've got like high-tech Murphy beds with passcodes on them and stuff. There's fire poles that go down to different floors. There's loads of weapons around. It honestly seems pretty sick. I'm glad we have gotten to see inside some of the cabins we have not seen previously. This is exciting to me.
Yeah, it's funny. I think like thinking back to one of our first episodes, I think it's like Sea of Monsters. I was saying, I don't think I would ever be claimed as a Hephaestus kid, but I would want to spend so much time there. Mm-hmm. It just seems so cool.
Yeah, it's like when your friend has the video game system that you don't have. Like, I never had a Nintendo system, so I used to love to go to my friend Charlie Johnston's place because he had an N64, and then we could play Ken Griffey baseball and stuff like that.
And I would go to my friend Jacob's house to play Kingdom Hearts because I didn't have a PlayStation.
Man.
Memories.
It took me until Johnny getting it for me and Kelly on the wedding registry, but let me tell you, Kingdom Hearts, great way to pass lockdown COVID times when you're trying to figure out what the heck is this plot? What is happening? It's a good way to pass the time. So then Leo, about this, feels like he's back in his mom's old machine shop. And now I'm wondering, is his mom Letty Ortiz from the Fast and the Furious franchise? He tries to shove the sad memories away, though, living up to his self-created mantra, quote, "keep moving." Leo is perplexed by seeing a weed whacker on the wall, but Will says, you'd be surprised at how useful that thing could be. And just after having this little chat, a camouflage curtain retracts, and Leo sees someone all wrapped up in a body cast. And it's our old pal, Jake Mason. We all remember Jake Mason from book 5, where he did something.
He had a name that was a pun for masonry.
He was there. Oh, wow. I never even got that. Good job, Uncle Rick. He was there. So Leo wonders what happened to this guy, but he's too afraid to ask, which is a good instinct. I like this thought from Leo. About him, narrator Leo says, quote, "He looked like the Pillsbury Doughboy after a beatdown."
That's great.
Pretty good. Jake welcomes Leo and introduces himself as the head counselor for now, which causes Leo to ask, "For now?" But then Will clears his throat and asks where everyone is, and Chiron nods in the distance for Will, avoiding revealing the plot too soon. Jake says that they are all at the forges working on, quote, "that problem," which I feel like at this point has to be the Bronze Dragon. Bronze Dragon's on the cover. Dragon was mentioned at the beginning of this chapter. I feel like the problem has got to be the Bronze Dragon, but we'll see. Will changes the subject. Chiron again nods in the distance and asks Jake if there is a spare bed for Leo. And Jake asks Leo if he believes in curses or ghosts. Leo thinks to himself, well, I just saw my evil babysitter and I keep thinking of my mom who's dead being caught in a machine shop fire. But then out loud he says, "Ghosts? Pfft, nah, I'm cool. And I relate to this so hard." Love to think one thing and say the exact opposite out loud out of fear of social repercussions. Jake says that's good because he's going to give Leo Beckendorf's old bed. And then narrator says, quote, "The whole cabin rumbled. A circular section of the floor spiraled open like a camera lens and a full-size bed popped up. The bronze frame had a built-in game station at the footboard, a stereo system in the headboard, a glass door refrigerator mounted into the base, and a whole bunch of control panels running down the side." I love that he has a bed created by Exhibit from Pimp My Ride. So good. So good.
You know, it's like he must have really loved Selena because I can't imagine having a private room with this awesome of a bed. He'd want to leave.
Oh, either that or maybe he invited Selena over all the time. Oh. Come on, let's play.
Like, yo, I got Overcooked. A stereo.
Let's play It Takes Two. Let's play a cool couch co-op game. Let's have a Stardew farm. Come on, come through to my fancy cool bed. I have Dr. Peppers in the fridge. Ooh. Leo immediately jumps in, kicks back, and says, I can handle this. Jake says that it retracts into a private room. Leo is stoked and immediately dubs it the Leo Cave. And Will is surprised that the Cabin 9 campers have secret rooms. Jake says that Apollo kids can't have all the fun. And Jake says that Cabin 9 has been excavating the tunnel system underneath their cabin for almost a century, but they still haven't found the end. And this is either a cool flavor text throwaway line or a seed that will be planted and become very important later. And there's no in between. So I have no idea what is in store, but pretty cool that they have a bunch of tunnels and stuff underground. I hope that it makes things structurally sound, though. I wouldn't want them to just, be excavating tunnels and then there's like a cave in for one of the other cabins one day.
Yeah, that'd be bad. I mean, luckily it is the camp engineers doing it, so one would hope.
One would hope.
But
one would hope indeed.
But they are teenagers, so who's to say?
Yeah, it's tough. Jake says that the bed is Leo's if he's not bothered by sleeping in a dead man's bunk, and Leo then realizes, oh, this is that guy's bed, as if there weren't enough hints to make it clear that this was the bed of the head counselor. Mm-hmm. But Leo then just checks, well, he didn't die in the bed, right? And the bed didn't have anything to do with his death, right? And he seems okay with it now that the bed didn't murder Beckendorf. Will explains the Titan War to Leo, and Leo just has no idea about it. And Will is surprised, but Leo, as the narrator kind of explains, that he missed the news because that summer he was on the run from another foster home and then he got sent to the wilderness school. But out loud, all he says was, guess I was busy. And I love that he's just an 80s action hero where he, thinks all the things but has to be a cool, tough guy. So instead, he just either has a wisecrack or a cool sounding catchphrase to throw out there instead of revealing the true thoughts within. Jake says that Beckendorf was one of the first to go in the war, and ever since then, and Leo finishes, quote, your cabin has been cursed. Ooh. There's no answer from Jake, which means that is a resounding yes. And Jake sighs, says that he should get to sleep, and that he hopes Leo likes it here because it used to be nice in Cabin 9. And now I feel really bad for the Hephaestus campers. They always seemed like a nice bunch. It felt like of any of the cabins, they would have the least beef with anyone. So I hope that they are able to get back in stride and be okay and have this curse wash away.
Yeah, they seem really cool.
They do seem cool. Jake closes his camouflage curtains. Will begins to take Leo to the forges. Leo looks back and thinks that the ghost of Beckendorf might be another specter that he'll have to worry about. And then that is the end of chapter 5. I gave this the title of I am granted access to a dead guy's bed. Do you have a funky chapter title you would give it?
Oh, I was just going to say like ghost beds, and I think I was just going to say I inherited a dead guy's bed, but yours seems a little better. Yeah.
We're on the same wavelength. Yeah. I like it. So at this point, now that we have finished chapter 5, before we get into chapter 6, we will take our break, which for now is still called The Cost Hero. I don't know if I have a better name quite yet. I need to think about it. Like the ads are in the mid-roll break, but the mid-roll break is not just ads, and cost sounds negative, so I don't know what to do, but that's what I've got right now. Anyway, mid-roll break, fun updates with the show, upcoming live shows, new merch, good stuff, and then we'll talk about chapter 6. Hello and welcome to the Lost Euro New York City edition, and it's also Dad edition. Hi, yes, you may have seen the social media post that I posted last week to announce last week's episode. That was the special announcement that I alluded to in the mid-roll break of last week's episode. Kelly and I had a little baby. Yeah, Kelly did most of the hard work. I was there too, and I'm trying to pull my weight as much as I can in every other area, but yes, we have a little tiny one now, and we are very excited for this new chapter in our lives. Thank you to everyone who wished us kind words on social media, email, all that kind of stuff. I really, really appreciate it. It's all very kind, and we're really feeling the love, and it's just fun and wonderful. And it was also fun keeping this secret from all of you for the past 9 months. I gotta say, it is impressive that we were able to hold it off. I'm very proud of us. We wanted to keep this on the DL just because the internet can be a scary place at times, and we wanted this little bit of our lives to be private until the baby was here. So I am impressed that we were able to lock it down, and I would also I think this shouldn't be an issue with anyone out there listening because you're all pretty chill, but we're trying to keep the baby's name and photo off of the internet and stuff like that. Just, don't want to force that upon them. before they are old enough to determine if they want to be in a corner of the internet. So just going to leave that more in the DL, but obviously going to be talking about this in future episodes. What's funny is I did record a whole bunch of stuff in prep for the birth, knowing that I might be kind of busy, which I am, but it'll be funny because you won't hear, like, I haven't recorded one about me being a dad. So there's going to be like months of episodes, at least weeks of episodes, where it's just like la 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 la, and then hard pivot. So you'll hear that at some point. But yes, in a new era of not only the podcast, but my life. And seems like everything should be okay work-wise with not having to skip stuff, be delayed, all that kind of stuff. But I would hope that everyone would understand if anything comes up. But for now, I think workflow is going to be okay because I do have to stay up all night with the baby, running the night shifts. And you know, it's a great thing to do while you are killing time, making sure a baby's still alive. Edit a podcast and look up every 2 seconds and make sure the baby's still doing well. Anyway, let's talk about podcast update stuff. Whee! First and foremost in this episode, I don't know if it's before or after the break, I forget, but there's a point where we talk about Beckendorf's old bed, and I didn't call it Bedkendorf. I'm very sorry. I would just like to apologize for missing this pun, and I will do better going forward. Now that I'm a dad, I feel like the dad jokes are going to be on the next level, and you might notice an increased dad joke in some of these recordings. The episode with Kelly had a lot of dad jokes. This episode, Steven has dad jokes. I think it's just becoming a thing, and now that I'm here in dad mode, oh baby, my power, I haven't even reached my final form. Also, very quickly, a reminder that we are coming to some cities in the US and Canada for some live shows in the near future. Head on over to thenewsolympian.com/live to see if we're coming to a city near you. And if you live near New Orleans, I'm trying to make something in New Orleans happen later in the year. I'm finally trying to make good on the promise of doing a live show in New Orleans, which was supposed to kick off my first ever tour in April of 2020. Now, I thanked some people earlier in this mid-roll break. I would also like to thank the folks supporting on Patreon. That is very cool. That is very awesome. Thank you all so much for doing that. I want to give a shout out to the folks who have joined most recently. So shout out to Kimberly Thorson and Luke. I wonder if it's that Luke, but thank you for supporting. May Hestia bless you that you don't accidentally leave your oven or your stove on. I've never had like a oh man situation happen to me, but sometimes I will have the thing where, you know, I'm washing all the dishes after dinner and then I go back and I'm like, oh my gosh, the oven's been on the whole time. Oopsie poopsie. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you. Now, if you're all caught up on the News Olympian and you are looking for some new content to consume, I would highly recommend going to the TNO Patreon. There's a whole bunch of stuff there. There is digital stuff that you can access, like extra content, bonus episodes, director's commentary. We do monthly Q&A live streams. There also is physical stuff that you can get. That's where you can get all of the Percy Later merch. We have stickers. You get 2 different colors of Percy Later stickers, one in the TNO Gold and one in the TNO Teal. And then there's also Percy Later enamel pins that are really nice. All of these designed by Kelly. And then if you join at the highest tier, you get a special holographic sticker in addition to being a part of the Olympic Court where you make production decisions. And also I say your name in the credits of every episode. So there's a whole bunch of really fun perks. You get access to the Discord, which is a blast. And I'm going to be adding more bonus content there soon. So head on over to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon if you're loving TNO and you just can't get enough. Now, unless you're listening on Patreon where you get ad-free episodes, you are going to hear words from some sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me, including ones from our new sponsors, Arena Club, which is all about card trading, and Thrive Market, which is a really cool online grocery store. And others of them won't be read by me. The ones that aren't will be locally inserted. So if you live in Montenegro, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Montenegrin. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of The News Olympian. And we are back, and we're here to discuss Chapter 6, which is also called Leo. So Leo asks how Beckendorf died, and Will explains that an explosion happened on a mission on a cruise ship with Percy, and Leo thinks that guy must have been into everything around here, which, yes, he was the main character for 5 total books, so he did do everything, basically. Leo asks if Beckendorf was popular. Will confirms and says that the whole camp was downtrodden after they learned about what happened to him. And he explains that stuff just started going wrong for the cabin ever since, and then Jake had his accident. So it just seems like things are going wrong with the things that they craft. Everybody's getting injured and stuff. It just feels like there's a funk over the Hephaestus cabin. So Leo guesses that this has to do something with the aforementioned problem, and Will confirms, just as they arrive at the forge. And describing the forge, narrator Leo says, the forge looked like a steam-powered locomotive had smashed into the Greek Parthenon, and they had fused together. White marble columns lined the soot-stained walls, chimneys pumped smoke over an elaborate gable carved with a bunch of gods and monsters. The building sat at the edge of a stream, with several water wheels turning a series of bronze gears. Leo heard machinery grinding inside, fires roaring, and hammers ringing on anvils. Rad as hell. What a cool description.
Yes.
Uncle Rick has still got it. He's still flexing out here.
Just wish we could have hung out with these guys earlier. It's just, that's all I think about reading these chapters.
Yeah, and that's what I think is actually really fascinating about doing this particular sequel series, bringing in new characters, but still having a lot of other characters that we know, whether it is characters that we know a lot, like getting to see more of Annabeth, or characters that we know basically nothing about, like Will Solace and Jake Mason. It's fun because even after 5 full books, there's so much left on the table. There's so much we could have learned about. So having the sequel series set in the same world is exciting because now we get to see some of the things that we didn't get to see. And I think that's just going to make me even more excited for some sort of adaptation of the Heroes of Olympus books. My secret hope is that they do an animated series, which would be really cool. Would also be a way for them to keep some of the same actors, because by the time they finish season 5 of the TV show, Walker is going to be way too old to be convincingly Percy Jackson in his teens. So they can basically take the Scott Pilgrim new show approach, where you have the original cast from the movie, but now it's all animated. So Michael Cera isn't out here looking like he's 48 when he's supposed to be, 17 or 19 or whatever. He's like, what is he? He's like late teens. He's old enough where it's weird that he's dating knives. That's what I remember.
He's
but
in
that's
his 20s.
also part of the story. Yeah, he's like,
I think
early 20s.
Early 20s, yeah.
22, yeah. Maybe don't date a high schooler, Scott.
Yeah.
But I know that's like the point of the thing, is that he kind of sucks.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm excited.
I agree. Animation is the way to go, I think, if they want to keep it going. I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah, it also allows them to do cool things that they can't even do with actors and CGI and stuff. You can get really funky with it. And I think that would be very fun and cool. And I'll just wait in anticipation to see if that happens. And then I get to make more episodes about job security. Woo! So anyway, yes, I'm excited that we get to see the Forge folks. And I agree with you. I would have loved to have met them earlier, but better late than never. That is my entire mantra of my career. But like literally better late than early as well, because otherwise it wouldn't be my job.
Yeah, it seems like you threaded that needle perfectly.
Nailed it, baby. Here we go. So as they step through the doorway of the forge, everyone inside stops working. Classic trope. Love it. What a bit. Always good. Never doesn't hit. Will goes on to introduce Leo, but he realizes that he doesn't know Leo's last name, so Leo says Valdez, and then looks at all the campers, wondering if he's really related to all these people, thinking, quote, his cousins came from some big families, but he'd always just had his mom, until she died. Which one? Okay, yeah, we remember. We've got that. But 2, this does make me think of one of my favorite lines from Spy Kids 3, which is when all the family comes in, and then somebody goes, wow, you have a lot of cousins.
And in my experience, only speaking from my lived experience, accurate, extremely accurate, both Spy Kids and this statement.
Well, this is why we've had you on this episode, because I had texted you, I had received a 1-star review of the podcast, which I normally try to brush off. There's times when people leave 1-star reviews where I go, okay, whatever. Especially if it's like, I don't think this guy's funny or whatever. The only time it gets me upset is when people say things that are incorrect. Like there was one who was like, oh, this podcast is poorly edited. Every 20 minutes, it like shuffles back and is like something earlier. I would think this wouldn't happen for someone who's been doing this professionally. That's not my fault. You are streaming the episode. You are not downloading the episode. And whatever podcasting app you're using is not doing a good job. So for anyone, if you've had that issue, if you download the episodes, that doesn't happen. It's not just my podcast. It's anyone that uses dynamically inserted ads. And because the podcast advertising landscape is crap right now, we have to use dynamically inserted ads. So if you want to undo that, just download the episode before you start listening instead of streaming it, and you're good to go. But that person left a 1-star review, and it really bugs me because it's not my fault. This podcast is very well edited. It's over edited, if anything. I've had many other people leave reviews saying that my podcasts have ruined them from listening to any other podcasts because Sherry and I do such a good job that every other podcast sounds like poop. And you know what? Most do. But anyway, I got this 1-star review from this person. It was weird because they like tried to be positive, or this wasn't a 1-star, it was a 3-star review where they were like, this show's great. It just lacks racial diversity, which is so untrue that it made me furious. And you can't reply to Apple reviews. It bugs me to no end. But this person let this review being like, oh yeah, I listened to the podcast and it doesn't seem like there's a diverse group of guests. I looked at the Instagram page and it seems like it's just a bunch of white people. What sucks is what this person is saying is that A, people just don't sound diverse enough, or their last names don't look diverse enough. They're like, oh, Moya McTeer must be a white person. Stephen Parra must be a white person. Jania Stewart must be a white person. Like, Sequoia Simone must be a white person. Like, it's infuriating because I made sure. I used to like chart things early on to make sure that I had enough diversity and like representing as many different groups as possible. And I was doing such a good enough job of it that I stopped tracking it. But when I sent you the screenshot of that review, you replied and you said, have me on for chapters 5 and 6 of The Lost Hero and this person's brain will explode.
Yeah, it is interesting because it's like, I feel like listeners keep rediscovering that I'm not white. Despite being on the podcast for very long and being very open about it since I think the first episode. But,
yeah, I mean, I think we made a beans joke, or you made a beans joke in the first one and even said like, it's okay, I'm Mexican.
Something like that. But yeah, it is interesting. But no, I mean, I wanted to come on this episode for many reasons because I do feel a deep kinship with Leo for a lot of things besides us both just being Texican little kids. But, you know, it's kind of a full circle moment, too, because, you know, we covered Beckendorf's death together on the podcast. We've talked about some dragons before at a live show. So I thought it was actually a really good full circle moment to be coming back here. Both like to offer cultural thoughts, you know, although, you know, I'm one Mexican guy. We're not a monolith. My lived experience could be very different from others, but I just thought it'd be cool to be here. And then also just like narratively, we've covered a lot of this ground together before. So that'd be really cool to get back to this point.
Yeah, I think it's fun. And it's also fun to have you on for an early episode because people like hearing you on the pod. So, you know, to have the opening lineup be some fan favorites, then yeah, that totally makes sense. But I'm glad that you could also come on and through Leo have an excuse to make it very clear for anyone that doesn't understand. Also, you're on the Instagram. I don't know what this person's talking about, but
I don't know.
But it also makes me think of something that I think it first came up on one of the Facebook groups and you had commented where people recognized that Sarah Barra, who was a past guest on the show, is Latina, but not Stephen Parra. And I mean, obviously Sarah has a thicker accent and you don't, but it's funny that I think even someone who made that comment was like, oh yeah, it is one letter difference.
Yeah.
And that letter is not that different. Like a P is just a B with a little another hump on the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not that far off. Anyway, Percy Jackson. So Leo thinks this cousin comment, and then he meets a bunch of his cousins. He meets someone named Shane, someone named Christopher, someone named Nissa, and someone named Harley. And then he does think, yeah, like the motorcycle. And don't say this to Harley, because I'm sure Harley has heard this a million times. Don't say it to them. Please don't do that. He doesn't, to his credit, which makes me very proud of Leo. He's shown some good, I can think one thing and say another instincts, which I think more people ought to utilize. Oftentimes when I'm in comment sections on social media, it's like, you typed this and you hit send. What?
Yeah.
Leo then thinks to himself that he's never going to remember these names because it's just too much all at once. And yeah, I relate to that quite hard. And he notes that this group is very diverse. They all look like they aren't necessarily related, but they all do look powerful and strong. And he continues, quote, even little Harley, who couldn't have been more than 8, looked like he could go 6 rounds with Chuck Norris without breaking a sweat. Oh, man. Remember Chuck Norris jokes?
Yes.
Whoa, look at that cultural timestamp from Rick Riordan, baby. Wow. Early 2010s. We're still going strong. What is your favorite Chuck Norris joke?
Oh, okay. Oh, gosh. It's just the only one I can remember off the top of my head at this point, but it's just like Chuck Norris doesn't do push-ups. He regularly pushes the earth down for 10 reps.
I'm glad you said that because I think that's my second favorite. I think my first favorite is Chuck Norris doesn't have any microwaves in his house because revenge is a dish best served cold. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yep.
We should bring those back. It's been long enough that we should bring them back.
Yeah.
Like all the original memes should come back. Like let's bring Velociraptor. Let's bring like the ones with the different colored, diagonal lines and stuff. Like bring them all back.
Yeah.
Let's go. Simpler times.
For sure.
There's too many times now where I see a meme and I have to like Google it, and then there's like a 35-page long thing on Know Your Meme that's like, well, it all started.
It all started the day I was born. I decided.
So Leo, also looking at the campers, thinks that they all kind of look beaten down both emotionally and physically. There's kids with arms and slings and band-aids and stuff like that. Leo then goes, well, all right, I hear this is the party cabin. And crickets. No laughter at all. Will basically leaves them to it, asking that one of them show Leo to dinner when the time comes. And Nyssa, who looks like a woman action hero except for a smiley face band-aid on her chin, rises to the task. Leo tells her that he always wanted a sister who could beat him up. She doesn't laugh. She just says, come on, Joker boy, I'll show you around. And Leo lets us know that he has been around workshops like this all his life. His mom used to joke that his first pacifier was a lug wrench, but no shop that he's ever been in is as cool as this one. And at this point in my notes, I guess I had forgotten, but I wrote all caps. Oh, the problem is for sure the dragon. The last chapter started with the dragon, and we haven't had that resolved. And I've noticed that as a trend is that with these 2-chapter pairs, we usually have something being introduced at the beginning of the first one that doesn't get resolved until the end of the second one. Mm-hmm. So if you were reading one chapter at a time, it would be really confusing. Like if you just read chapter 5 and then you close it, you go, wait a second, there's no dragon in that chapter. What's going on?
Yeah. It actually reminds me of the author James Patterson a little bit, where it's like instead of a page break, he just starts a new chapter. A lot of these Heroes of Olympus chapters almost feel like there was a page break and then they just new chapter instead. But I think it works really well.
Yeah, I think it does. So Leo then sees a guy testing a battle axe against concrete. He's not satisfied, even though it is slicing through it like it's cheese. So Leo asks, what do you have to fight against that you need weapons better than this? Nyssa says, monsters. She says that celestial bronze will destroy some of these monsters on contact, but others, like drakens, have tough hides. And Leo, as well as my notes app autocorrect, thinks that she means dragons, but she explains that drakens and dragons are similar but different species. And one interesting thing she noted that I guess it was never really mentioned before, or I missed it, is that celestial bronze is mined from Olympus. So there's some sort of cave? Like is celestial bronze a limited resource?
I don't know. This was new to me too. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, they're gods, so maybe not, but then why do they make them mine it?
Here's what it is. The mines are like the mines in Stardew Valley, where they eventually go away, but every time you go to sleep, they reset and they reform in different configurations and stuff.
Got it. It's just some minor god running around like, put the ores back.
Some minor god. All right, that's the episode. Thank you everyone for listening.
The new cabin will be at Camp Half-Blood shortly.
But man, a Percy Jackson Stardew Valley, that would hit. That would be really good.
I would buy that.
That would be pretty cool. That would be really, really fun.
Do any of the listeners mod? Can you do this for us?
Gosh, there'd be so many cool things. Anyway, Percy Jackson. So then Nyssa says that Leo will learn the difference between drakens and dragons in monster fighting class. And Leo jokes, I already have a black belt in that. And silence, no laughter. Leo sees some campers working on a wind-up centaur that shoots everywhere, screaming, die, mosquito, die, mosquito. And everybody ducks except for Leo, who gets 6 arrows in his shirt, and they blame the failure on the curse, saying that they just want a thing that hunts bugs. And oh man, if I could have a thing that could kill mosquitoes, oh my goodness, it would be so good. You can also tell Uncle Rick lived in Texas, seeing that mosquitoes would be the number one enemy of the bugs to kill.
Absolutely. The biggest menace of Texas.
They're so bad. They're so bad. They're so bad. Gosh, I'm so glad I don't live in there anymore. I mean, there's nice things about Texas, but man, when is the last time I got bit by a mosquito in New York? I don't know if I've ever been bit by a mosquito in New York. I'm going to knock on some wood. Because my goodness, gosh, it's so nice. We just get lightning bugs instead, which are way more fun. They don't bite you and they're pretty.
Yeah.
So when they blamed it on the curse, I had a thought. I think Leo is going to shake them out of the curse. I can feel it. It's all in their heads. It's going to be some sort of thing where the curse was never an actual curse. They were just in a funk, and Leo's going to lead them out of the funk. That is my prediction, but we want to keep your trapdoor intact, so we will just move along. Leo, after getting hit with these arrows, says, ouch, and Nissa says, you're fine, which is great. I love that so much.
I love their sibling dynamic already. It's just great, you know? It reminds me of me with my sister a little bit, where I'll just like toss out what's funny to me, dead silence, and then something like that. It's like, ow, you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, oh. Great sibling pair already.
It's nice to have a sibling pair because weirdly we don't have that many established sibling fun friendships. Yes, obviously we've got Percy and Tyson, the Stolls as well, but outside of that, we don't get too much like campers from the same cabin acting like a classic brother-sister duo, which you are totally right. This feels exactly like that, and I love it. It's very fun. Nissa says that she doesn't believe in the curse, but she does think that something is wrong. And if they don't solve the dragon problem, it will get worse. And then Leo goes, the dragon problem? Because he didn't read the introduction to chapter 5. And Nissa then consults a map with the other campers, and it becomes clear that they have lost the bronze dragon. She explains the whole story to Leo because I guess he also didn't read the demigod files, saying that it was protecting the camp, and then it started going haywire and attacked the camp and the campers, and then it truly went bonkers one day and ran off. And I feel like there is audio evidence of me saying that of the 3 stories in the demigod files, the one that I think is least likely to have future, no, maybe that was the chariot one, but I was surprised that the Draken is the one that actually has later story implications as opposed to the Sword of Hades, which only kind of maybe had implications because Percy sometimes remembered that it happened and sometimes forgot that it happened in book 5. But I thought the Bronze Dragon was just going to turn into like Peleus 2, where he's there, but we don't really care about him. So for the Bronze Dragon to become a major plot point, that's very interesting. And I feel like anyone who hasn't read the Demigod Files should go read them and then listen to the episodes of the New Olympian about them because they're very good.
Yes. It's live from Europe.
Yes, it
Quite
is.
fun.
Yeah, and you were the guest for some portions of that.
Woo!
Woo! So fun. I just did all my taxes and stuff today. So it was fun going through because normally, and this is welcome to Taxes Corner with Mike Schubert, everybody. Normally, when I am traveling for work and stuff, I just have a business credit card. So it's really easy. I just like download the statements of that and then send it to my tax guy. And I'm like, everything on this card is a business expense. But when I'm international, I use my other card that has no international fees. I think I did learn that one of my business cards does have no international fees, but I didn't learn until like a couple of weeks ago.
Oh.
But anyway, I have to go through my personal card and then take some of the things that actually were business expenses. So that was this, where I was going through all of the things on Europe tour and marking off what was a business expense and what wasn't. And it was fun kind of going down memory lane because I would have to Google like, what is this restaurant that's a bunch of letters? Be like, oh yeah, okay, we ate that before the show. That's a business expense. But yeah, fun memory lane. Europe tour was great. Listen to all the episodes again. Anyway, Percy Jackson. No more accounting corner. So Nissa also explains about the Bronze Dragon to Leo that Beckendorf was the best at controlling it, and without Beckendorf, they kind of have been screwed. Everyone else at the camp expects the Hephaestus campers to, much like my favorite line from The Matrix, find it and destroy it. Except for The Matrix, it's find them and destroy them. Leo is aghast, thinking that controlling the dragon would be much better than destroying the dragon. Nissa says they have tried, and Jake tried, and look at how well that worked out. So we kind of have to just go with plan destruction, plan D, and the D stands for destruction. Leo doesn't want to give up hope, though. Nissa says there's no other option. Cabin 9 wants to lure the dragon out with motor oil and then use acid sprayers to melt through his armor and then use metal cutters to finish the job. And it was also very Texan of Uncle Rick to write that the way that they are luring the dragon out is by taking motor oil and then putting some hot sauce inside of it, because that's what it used to enjoy drinking. You got to throw some hot sauce on it. I throw hot sauce on my eggs every morning.
Yeah.
I get it.
It'll work on me.
I'm not a huge Tabasco guy.
Yeah.
I'm a big Mary Sharp's the Belize hot sauce guy.
Yeah, it depends. It's like even for like the Tabasco sort of things, I use something called like Louisiana hot sauce. This is very divergent, but
no, it's important.
I'm a big Cholula guy too.
Cholula's good. Yeah.
Tapatio's pretty solid. Yeah.
Tabasco's just like a little too vinegary for me.
I agree.
want something with a little more flavor, so I would rather do a Cholula or a Tapatio. And then you get to see the fun drawings instead of the boring Tabasco logo.
Yes.
Some hot sauce companies sponsor the show. Anyway, Leo overhears one camper saying that they can't get too close to the dragon because it breathes fire. And Leo thinks, oh, I could tell them a lot about fire because of course Leo is a pyromaniac. Of course he is. He asks if they have fire resistance powers, since Hephaestus is apparently the god of fire. And Nyssa says that's a Cyclops ability. They're just good with their hands and tinkering and stuff like that. But then one guy in the back begins, well, a long time ago. And Nyssa gets ahead of this reply guy and says it used to be a trait for kids of Hephaestus back in the day, but no one has had that ability in hundreds of years. And then I wrote in my notes, until now, because of course this is going to be Leo for sure. Gosh. Apparently the last person was Thomas Gaynor in 1666. He started the Great Fire of London and destroyed most of the city. I don't know about this historical event. Do you know about this historical event?
Nope. And I could have Googled it before the episode, and I didn't.
I didn't either, but let's just see what it says. Great London Fire. What's the quick summary? Wikipedia says the Great Fire of London was a major conflagration that swept through central London from Sunday, the 2nd of September to Thursday, the 6th of September, 1666, gutting the medieval city of London inside the old Roman city wall while also extending past the wall to the west. The death toll is generally thought to have been relatively small, although some historians have challenged this belief. Okay, so it just seems like big fire.
Yeah, it doesn't sound that great. It sounds pretty sad.
Yeah, I guess. I was wondering if it was one of those fires where it's like, oh, they did it for political things. No, it just seems like a big fire. So, Thomas, what were you doing? Anyway, then a conch-horn blows, meaning it's dinner time. Leo is shocked that the time has gone by so quickly. Quote, his ADHD did that to him sometimes. If he was bored, a 50-minute class seemed like 6 hours. If he was interested in something, like touring a demigod camp, hours slipped away and bam, the day was over. Leo asks for a minute to process things before following them back to the pavilion. Nyssa allows it, but says don't touch anything, meaning he's for sure going to touch something. Leo then looks at his hands. They are long and thin, and he thinks about how he was never the biggest or the strongest, but he would get by with his wits, and that was his plan B. And then he says, as narrator Leo, quote, there was a plan C, but he'd promised himself to never use it again. And I wrote in all caps on my notes, ooh, firepower. And then it continues, he felt an urge to try it now, something he hadn't done since the accident, since his mom's death. And then I wrote, no, did he cause it? Ah! And then it continues, he extended his fingers and felt them tingle like they were waking up, pins and needles. Then flames flickered to life, curls of red hot fire dancing across his palm, which is very exciting. And that's the end of the chapter, which is very cool. I'm excited that we have someone with fire powers because we really haven't had that yet, right? Nobody's had some sort of fire ability yet.
No, not that I can recall. Just Tyson being resistant, but
right.
This is new ground.
New ground, pretty cool. So if I had to give this a chapter title, I probably would have called it, I Promise Not to Touch Anything. What would you title chapter 6?
I was percolating, but then when you just went, ooh, firepower, that took me over. I just
That's
love
your
that.
new chapter
Like,
title is just ooh, firepower.
firepower.
Yeah, just spoil it right away. Just ruin the chapter. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm really excited. These chapters, it is so much harder to not continue these versus the previous books. I really want to read ahead, but I know that I can't. So I fully understand why people just absolutely blow through these because you're just going to get in the cycle of like, well, I want to see what happens to Leo next. Mm-hmm. But in order to do that, I got to read the 2 Jason chapters. Oh, yeah, Jason, right. Oh, and then I got to read the 2 Piper chapters. Oh, right. Yeah, Piper. What's going on with that sword mirror thing? And Hera. And, oh, now we're back to Leo. Cool. Oh, wait, but what about the Jason thing from 4 chapters ago? Oh, no. Like, I can totally see why people read them in one sitting. Mm-hmm. So I get it. This has made my job tougher. But I think that's also part of the reason why I'm super far ahead reading wise. Like, we're recording this on March 26th, and this is not going to come out until like May. But I want to keep doing it, which will also be good because then I'll get ahead. But anyway, those were the first Leo chapters in The Lost Hero, and that was this episode. Stephen, thank you so much for joining. What a fun time.
Of course. I'm always happy to come in and do this, dude. It's always a great time.
Yes, you will be on in the future a lot. Make sure you keep reading the book so I can keep having you on.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm sure you will be here in the future. But until then, is there anything you want to promote to the folks at home if they want some more Dr. Stephen Parra in their life?
Check out Meddling Adults, I guess. I'm on that sometimes. Go back and listen to the PJO section of this podcast. I'm on there quite a lot, and I think we do a great job going through this awesome book series.
I am very biased, but I agree. I think all of those episodes are fantastic. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thank you for listening. And until next time, when I guess we figure out what's going on with Jason, unless we have Leo run into the part of the Jason chapters going, oops, I torched the entire workshop forge. My bad, guys. Until then, I'll pursue you later. Hi, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Krugel, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you enjoy the show and you can't get enough, you can head on over to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon, and you can get access to a whole bunch of bonus content. You can also find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and there's a subreddit, reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. If you want to support the show with some TNO merch, you can go to thenewestolympian.com/merch. And if you want to see if we've got a live show coming to a city near you, head on over to thenewestolympian.com/live. I mentioned that Patreon earlier. Let's give a shout out to our producer level patrons: Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Veronica Bartova, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Ashton Gabrielson, Margot Redhouse, Sam Reeby, Riley Kiddes, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, Sandkopf, Julia Kendall, Rickey, John Drielsma, Rayla Matthews, Luna Kadoon, Sky Mallory, Per Sassabeth, Aiden Parziani, Biggest Tyson Fan, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction Coming Up, Ginger Spurs Boy, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Olivia Krinicki, Bradimus Prime, Kibo Guy, Skylar Sisters, Demigod Nurse, Zachary Hamilton, Scott Sheldon, Sophie, Natanya Page, Ann M. Thayer Cohen, Finley McLeod, Sarah Elise Arnson, Bella, Hayden Neal, Percy Jackson, and Han Haley Hingelheimer Schmidt. If you want to support the show in a non-monetary way, word of mouth helps the podcast so much. Whether you reach out to someone directly and say, hey, there's this podcast called The Newest Olympian. It's about Percy Jackson. I think you would really like it. Whether that person is a Percy Jackson superfan or someone you're trying to convince to get into the books. You can also just talk about the show on social media. That helps. You could even just leave a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. All of these things really help. I appreciate everyone who has already done so, and I appreciate anyone who will do so in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tuned into our next episode where we will be joined by Johnny Frolickstein to discuss chapters 7 and 8 of The Lost Hero. But until then, I'll pursue you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So I may or may not be... Oh, you may have heard the preview of ASMR Mike. I may or may not be recording this while I've got the little one strapped to me. And I was going to see if the little one would make a little noise for the ASMR Mike segment, but you may have already heard it. So thank you very much, and thank you for listening.